Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you from the Spit Studios in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, this is the Spit Sports Show. I am so excited for this episode because all of the NBA's discussions are very well-rounded, to be honest with you. There's so many different avenues, podcasts, platforms nowadays that it seems like every different angle of every NBA, NFL, NHL debate ever is covered. That goes for who's going to win the Super Bowl, who's going to win the NBA championship, who's going to make the All-Star team, all of that stuff. And right now, the hottest discussion in the NBA world right now is who is going to win MVP. More specifically, who is second in MVP, because everyone just kind of assumes that Nikola Jokic, with his 24, 16, and 16 performances every single night, is probably going to take the award home for the third time in 4 years. His team is the 3 seed right now. They're playing very good basketball. And with his ridiculous 60+% efficiency and the fact that he is the motor behind that Denver Nuggets offense, which we've seen win a title at this point, it's hard to bet against him winning yet another MVP, and he deserves it just well enough. And for second place, I've heard a bunch of different names mentioned. I've heard Jason Tatum's name come up a couple times, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, one of my favorite players in the world. I've heard Giannis's name come up, even though it never should. I've heard a bunch of different names, but the one name that I haven't heard any national prominent media member mention is the guy who I think should be first in MVP ballots right now, maybe tied for first with Jokic. And I don't know how this guy's going under the radar when he's one of the biggest personalities and one of the biggest stars in the world, and he's playing with another one of the biggest stars in the world. It doesn't make any sense to me. But Luka Doncic should be up for at least prime MVP consideration. If not just behind Jokic, a little ahead of him, tied with him, whatever. He needs to be in this discussion and at the top of it. So right now, let's just look at individuals' stats first. I'll talk about the team aspect in a second, because realistically, there's two things that really go into making your MVP case. There's your numbers and there's your team success. So I want to start with individual numbers. So right now, Luka Doncic is averaging 34, 9, and 9. I'm going to get more into how ridiculous that is in a little bit, but just for now, just keep that number at the top of your head. He's averaging 34 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists. He is first in the NBA in scoring by 3 whole points. He is third in the league in assists. He's leading the league in scoring, and he's top 3 in assists. Okay. He's also top 20 in rebounding, just in case those first two stats weren't ridiculous enough for you. He's 18th right now in total rebounding per game. He's shooting 49% from the field on 23 shots per game. By far a career high. So he's doing it efficiently. And you want to talk about efficiency, a big deficiency people have pointed out in his game is his high volume 3-point taking with not a lot of high volume 3-point making. Well, he's shooting 38% from 3 this year. And that is even more impressive than you might think, because the threes that he takes aren't like a conventional NBA 3 ever, really, with a catch and shoot in the corner or, just even a simple off the bounce. Every single 3 he takes is pretty much a step back with a hand in his face. So the fact that he's making those at a 38% clip, which just opens up the Mavs offense completely. He's shooting 27% when they lose, and he's shooting 46% when they win. It's tremendous what he's doing from the 3-point line this year. And just to harp back on that 34, 9, and 9 that he's averaging, simply put, no one has ever put up numbers like this, ever. Only 7 players in NBA history have averaged over 35 points a game, which Luka has a chance to do this year. He's at 34.3 right now. Just a couple percentage points here and there could jack him up to 35. Even if he doesn't, only 9 different players have averaged over 34 in a season. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, the most assists that someone has averaged when scoring over 34 points a game is James Harden in 2018-19 with 7 assists a game. And that seems really, really good. It seems like it's in Luka's stratosphere. Luka's averaging 8.8 right now, and so rounded up to 9. Harden was averaging 7.4, so you drop that down to 7. But here's the thing about that. in that 2018-19 Harden season, he had a usage rate of 40.3%. That was the second highest ever in a season behind the Russell Westbrook MVP year. Luka right now is sitting at 36%. Now, I'm not saying that's not a lot of usage rate. He's leading the league in usage rate, but it's not the second most ever. And he's averaging 2 more assists than Harden did that season. And the next highest for assists, averaging over 34, is Embiid last year with 6, and then 5 by Jordan. So basically, if you average over 34 a game, it's going to be darn near impossible to average more than 5 assists a game. Luka's averaging 9 assists per game, and add on to that another 9 rebounds just for fair measure. He is a way better rebounder than people give him credit for. No one has ever averaged 34, 9, and 9 before in NBA history. You go back through the history books, no one has averaged that many points, that many assists, that many rebounds in the same season. It just hasn't happened before. Now, Jokic, no one's averaged the amount of points, assists, rebounds combined that he has, but he doesn't have the scoring that Luka does. He can't average 34, 35 a game. Maybe he could, but he doesn't. And he leads the league in points created by a mile. Now, this is a bit of a new stat, and I really had to do some research to conclude as to what it was. But number 1 was Luka, number 2 was Jokic, number 3 was Shea. It's pretty much exactly who you'd think. And the reason why he's leading the league in points created is because most of his passes are to wide open 3-point shooters because the defense has to collapse so hard on him to stop him from getting into the lane. Now, that's all the offensive stuff. He's maybe the greatest single offensive engine we have seen in NBA history. Maybe. And it's something we've never seen before because no one can stop him one-on-one. And when you double him, you've got another guy who no one can stop one-on-one. I'm going to get into him a little bit later too, but if you want to talk about individual, we obviously can't leave defense out of the equation. Now, Jokic, who he's competing against for the MVP, is obviously a better defender than he is just because of how big he is and he can affect shots at the rim easier. But Luka's effort on defense this year cannot be questioned. He's definitely been putting some heart into it, which is something that I thought he was sorely lacking last year. He's never going to be a great defender because he's just not athletic enough laterally. And, he can't really stay in front of guys easily. However, all we ask for from guys like that who can create so much offense is effort. Think about Steph in his MVP years and other guys like that. You just want them to try. And Luka's trying. There's no doubt about it. Now, neither are plus defenders. I don't think Jokic is a stud defensively. I think he's good. I don't think he's great. I think Luka's a little below average defensively, but that shouldn't be the tipping point between the two at all. But maybe what should is the team success, which I'm going to get into now. So Dallas's roster is obviously worse than the Nuggets roster, who won the championship last year. Offensively, I'd give a slight edge to the Nuggets, just because they have a bit more 3-point shooting, I think, than the Mavericks do. They also just straight up run a better system. It's not a very ball dominant system, which I get has some to do with Luka, but he's not the one calling ISOs every play. You know what I mean? They've built the system around him. And it's not like Denver doesn't build the system around Jokic. They do, but they have people just running around him, constant motion, whereas Dallas's offense is kind of just stand in the corner, wait for Luka to pass you the ball. So offensively, I'd give it to the Nuggets, but it's close. Defensively, it's not close at all. The Nuggets defense is just a million miles better than the Mavs has. Now, the Mavs defense has gotten a little bit better since the trade deadline where they picked up a couple big guys. However, on the perimeter, when Luka and Kyrie are on the floor, it is going to be really tough to guard the other team's number one guard on a consistent basis. Now, and also, you want to talk about defensive effort. Good for Kyrie this season, man. Kyrie, in terms of his body type and what he's able to do physically as a defender, there's not much there, but he has been working his butt off this year on defense, and good for him for it. But the reason why I bring up that Denver's way better defensively is that it puts way more pressure on Luka to create offense for his squad, because the Mavs' really only way to win games is to outscore the other team, because they're not going to get consistent stops, especially with perimeter guards becoming so much more prominent in offenses nowadays. It seems like every good team in the league has a guard can take anyone one-on-one, never mind these two below average defenders. So Luka has a lot more on his plate because he has to constantly keep up with that pace. Now, the big knock against Luka right now is his seed, and I totally understand that. He is the 8th seed right now, but I think that's a little misleading if you don't actually look at the standings, because the Mavericks right now are only zero point 0.5 games back, or half a game back, I should say, of the 5 seed. Now, it used to be the case where it was pretty much the 1 or the 2 seed, or you don't win the MVP. But the guy who might win it this year, Jokic, shattered that mold a couple years ago and won the MVP as a 6th seed. So you can't tell me someone averaging numbers that have never been seen in the history of the world on the 5 seed wouldn't be a prime MVP candidate. Like, the 5, that's enough. Now, can he end the season at the 8 and have a chance of winning the MVP? I don't think so. I don't think he should. But if he climbs up a bit, which the Mavs, I think, are primed to do, they've been playing very well in the recent weeks, I think he's got a chance. And speaking of how the Mavericks have been playing lately, do you remember how much of a disaster it was last year when Luka and Kyrie first got teamed up? Like, it literally couldn't have gone worse. The Mavs were the 4 seed when they got Kyrie, and they ended up flat out missing the playoffs because not only could they not play a lick of defense, Luka and Kyrie were having big issues working together because they're both used to being the primary ball handler. But this year, both of them to some extent have swallowed their prides and they've made it work. And Luka gets a bunch of credit for that because the way he's been able to defer to Kyrie in situations in the fourth quarter when Kyrie just has a better matchup than he does, I think has been really selfless. And I think Kyrie has gotten to the point where he acknowledges Luka's the best player. And there's nothing wrong with that. Kyrie is still an unbelievable player, and he's just a great number 2. And he's accepted that. And I think that's a big part of the Mavs' success. I think Derek Lively has been a big part of the Mavs' success too. I think Tim Hardaway Jr. coming off the bench has been a big addition for them. I think a lot of stuff has gone really well for the Mavs and Luka, and I'm super impressed. And the way that Luka has been able to turn around this franchise, where the narrative before the season, don't let anyone forget, is that after this season and maybe one more, is Luka going to leave the Mavericks because they can't put a roster around him? No, it's not looking like that anymore. I think they have a puncher's chance to make the NBA Finals. Would they be my pick? Absolutely not. But with that offensive firepower and that guy who creates more points than anyone ever, and who's a certified playoff demon, second highest playoff scorer of all time, I wouldn't bet against it. I wouldn't bet against it at all. And just for this regular season, I don't see how you bet against Luka winning the MVP. I understand Jokic is unbelievable. He's the best player in the world. No one has ever averaged 34, 9, and 9, ever. And he's doing it on a team that is just worse than Nikola Jokic's team. And if he gets that team up to the 5 seed, how do you deny him the award? How do you deny him the award? Anyways, guys, please let me know your thoughts on my take in the comments below. Am I crazy? Is Jokic the clear MVP favorite? No one touching him. Who do you have as your top 3 MVP ladder right now? What do you guys think the season is going to wrap up as? Who's your NBA Finals pick? I want to know all of this in the comments below. The reason I say that is because I'm small enough as to where I can respond to most comments, if not all of them. So please leave something below. The Spit Sports Show just hit over 200 subscribers. So if you want to join this wave before it becomes a tsunami, please hit that subscribe button below. Big things are happening on this channel. Please leave a like on the video because it really helps YouTube catch it and put it on home pages and all of that stuff to make the channel grow. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.